So recently, I had occasion to see the Lomax documentary again, but this time with an audience, which was a great experience, right? I don't have to tell you that, but I'm sure that for you it was very gratifying and lots of other things. But for me, and I was also very pleased with the moment, and I'm all about the moment, and I thought that was a beautiful thing, and all of that. There you go. That said, Mark said something in the Q&A that really stuck with me, and I didn't really respond to it at the time, but apparently my brain was like, we're going to need to process that. Because I spent the rest of the night apparently processing it in my sleep, and then woke up with this whole thing. So here's what happened. Mark's in the Q&A, and he says, someone asked him a question about adversity, more or less. Challenges, I think is the way they put it. And Mark said some things, but then one of the things that he said was, Columbus doesn't care about black art, I think is the way he put it. Does that sound right?
Yeah, that's what he was, he was adamant.
That's almost a quote, if it's not the quote. And so, that doesn't really stick out to me. Right? Like Mark and I have had that conversation multiple times over the years, and even recently, a couple of times. And so, but it stood out to me in my head. And then I went home, I went to sleep, whatever. I didn't even talk about it after that, right? Like I just kind of hanging out, went home, didn't say nothing about it, just went to bed. Woke up the next morning, my head was aflame with an idea. And the idea was, how can I make what Mark said no longer true? Can it be done? Can Columbus be brought to bear where black art is concerned? Right? Can it prove that it cares? And can I make that happen? Right? Because I'm all about it, as you know, I'm all about answering questions. My thing is, what's the question? And then what's the answer? And to me, the answer is almost always more work, right? So, can black people work together? I put a thing together where black people can work together. Oh, can black people make money off art? I make a thing where black people can make money off art. Where are the black venues? I make a black venue. So I'm about removing the questions off the table so that we can build, right? It's not about being right. It's about laying the groundwork for whoever comes next, because I'm tired. So this question to me was really profound, because if you have somebody like Mark Lomax, who has a world-class talent. Like, that's not hyperbole. I would drop Mark anywhere in the world and let him do what he does, and I think he would succeed. I believe that. So, world-class talent. The man has put out 40 albums in one capacity or another in 20 years. He is degreed. He can compose. He can perform. He can produce. He has taken the step to document pretty much everything that he does, not knowing where that will end up. He has even put himself into the machine of the city to see that that kind of work is supported. Whether that's his or not. He's also award-winning, right? Got that governor's award, at least. So all of this begs the question, how can he stand in front of a room of like 100 people who just watched this documentary of this outstanding performance and the preparation for their performance, in the face of, you know, all of the albums that he dropped in aid of this project, the 400 Project, how could he stand in front of that room, which includes not only the institution where he was doing it, which is the Ohio Historical Connection, which is a museum of Ohio things, but in front of like these heads of organizations, these people who have supported him for years to the tunes of thousands of dollars to realize his projects and his vision. You know, people in charge of arts organizations, you know, people who are part of the art industrial complex, as I call it. A city council member was there, at least one. How could he stand up in the face of all those people and all that history with all his credentials and accomplishments and still say Columbus doesn't care about black art and it still be true? How is that possible? Is he wrong? No, he's not wrong. The question is, how is that defined? Because he can't be the only measure of that. And if he were the only measure of that, I wouldn't be saying this right now, right? Like, I went ahead and created a whole building because I believed that statement. So my brain was on fire. I was like, yo, how can I do that? And the question is not the work, right? The question is just the question. The question is how you know some work needs to happen. I woke up with the work. I was like, oh, well, here's an answer. Ba, 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 ba. Looks like this, da, 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 da. And I said, I think that you can make the city answer the question one way or the other, right? Because the city can either do this thing that, let's say I prescribe, because I had this whole thing drawn out in my head already. I was like, well, here's the people that we need, here are the things that need to happen, here's, you know, it needs to happen for this length of time, and it's going to cost X, which is the sticky part. I said, if the city does that, will that prove it? To me, that would be the answer. They would have to do these things, and then I would shut up. Right? I would change my answer if they did these things. And then I said also, but on the other hand, if they don't do it, or they can't do it, that is also an answer. I would like to have that answer too. That way we can all stop pretending. We can all stop pretending, right? So then we can all just say, well, Columbus is capable of this much art, this much interest in black art. And then we can all just shut up about it. We can first of all, let's be clear, we're all going to keep our day jobs. Sorry. And, you know, there are certain things you're not going to be able to do. There's only so much money they're ever going to give you. And that's the answer. Columbus doesn't have the means or the will to care about black art. That is an answer. That's a very likely answer. That's more likely than the other answer. Right? And so I was like, whoa, that's an enormous question to answer. Like, if I pull that off, if I answer that question and they do it or they don't do it, I mean, that's life-changing to me. To somebody like me, who is always looking for an angle and a way to kind of like create culture and define it and refine it and preserve it, and then get other people to commit to it for the rest of their lives, for the betterment of their lives, to make culture not an additive, right? To make culture a thing that must be considered at all times because it's happening anyway. You know, to make it not pimpable, right? Because it gets pimped now. How can we make it not pimpable? How can we make it an actual relationship? So that was all the stuff that I was thinking of and coming up with. And I was like, basically what it is a line in the sand. You present this thing and you say, here is how you can prove your love. This is how you can answer the question. Will you or a combination of you or whatever, will you do that? And if they do that, then we will have changed the course of culture in this city. Not just for black artists either. And if they don't, then I can sell this building and move to New Orleans and chill. And just go to clubs every night. And stop fighting for a culture that's never going to happen. At least in my lifetime. So, I pondered that. Like, I pondered that hard. I started, like, really thinking about how to make it happen. For, like, 2 days. Well, 1 day. And then, after that, I started to really dive into the logistics and the logic of it. But I was just like, yo, I was telling people around me, I was like, yo, I can't tell you what it is. I just need to tell you that you got to give me the space to figure this thing out. I can't do no chores today. I can't fucking go to work today. I can't. Y'all got to leave me alone until I figure this shit out. And so I kind of figured it out. I don't have all the details, but I figured it out, you know? And I think I talked to maybe like 2 people about it, three people about it, just to kind of see if I was going insane. And I'm not going insane, but it is an enormous, it's the kind of proposal that changes everything, has the potential to change everything. And that's saying a lot in a city that pretends like it's changing things all the time. So that's where things are. Right now where things are is I'm still kind of sitting on it like, do I actually put this into the world? Right? Do I actually put this into the world? Because once I do, I can't take it back. And once people start biting on it, I have to do it. So that's the thing. And I'm kind of navigating a place now where it's like, well, you know, the goal, there's a question in there. Well, that's the end of the first chapter. Here we go. The second chapter is digging into that. But I want to talk to you right now and kind of see where your head is at based on what I just said. You, Jason.
I mean, I guess my questions would just be, what kind of steps are you how are you gonna attack?
So, and I need you to understand at least 2 things. 1, I didn't have it completely laid out yet. And 2, I've decided to not focus on it for a couple of weeks, so it's been a couple of weeks since then. So it's a little cold to me. So bear with me. All of that is a qualifier. But basically what would happen is you say, okay, to do the thing requires a certain level of work and a certain amount of that work, right? So like, now that I know how the knife works, here you go.
Thanks.
God, to believe I used to collect knives. Let's do this.
And I guess one thing I would say is that. So what are you doing right now?
I have to draw it.
Okay. I was gonna say, just to kind of put, that's cool. I don't believe that it does.
You don't believe that it can or that it does currently?
I don't believe that it can, although I believe that the show that Kat put on at the Rife Gallery,
yes,
does demonstrate that it is possible. Because that just feels like a normal art exhibit. It doesn't feel like it's black or white. It feels like a genuine, I think it's the juried show. And it just feels like it's a mix of everything. It doesn't feel like, oh, this is they're including some black art in here because they have to, because of the times. It feels like a real show. The art is all, you know. So is it possible? I don't, she gives me faith. But again, it comes down to money. I mean, so Mark can't get any money to do his projects. I mean, just like you said, everything he spent on that work, and now it's done. And the pandemic, you know, did what it did. But now he can't get a dime to pursue another project. And he did it on a reasonable budget. I mean, half of that came out of his own pocket.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, short of saying I'm fiercely independent, none of that happened the way that it should. Right? He should have got some ridiculous grant or been afforded some ridiculous budget by some ridiculous organization and then just been able to do that for however many months or a year that it took to make it happen. Matter of fact, the fucking residency that he had with the Wex should have been that. In theory, right? He was there he was committed to him for like a year or something. I mean, they paid him good money for what they pay, but nothing life-changing. Nothing that, would have, nothing that bought him time, right? Like, what did he give him, 15 G's for a year commitment? For a year commitment? And you want me to do some programming? And you want me to come up with something at the end of this? And you get to put your name all over me? What? And you get to put me on a bus stop and a billboard or whatever? You get to use my name and likeness to say that you are supporting shit? What? 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 That's what the WEX should have been. That's what the WEX should have been. So, and that's the thing about Columbus is we have these machines already in place. We have the processes already in place, right? We have the relationships already in place, but they are not real relationships. They're still very one way. They give us pennies because our vision is in dollars and they give us pennies. And then they walk away with gold bars. It's ridiculous. So the thing looks something like You say, okay, here's the deal, Columbus. You say, here's the question, right? And then you say, the way that you can make, the way you can answer this question goes one of two ways. It's either yes or it's no. And the no could be a definitive no, or it could be a we can't do it no. But a no is a fucking no, and that's the end of the discussion. There is nothing past no. You either care, and remember that's what the question is. The question is all care. You either care or you don't. Right? Now once you say yes, or once you say, well, let's do what let's try to figure out if we can do yes. Once you do that, then all kinds of other things have to happen. They open up all possibilities, everything's on the table. But we have to be very clear about what this is. And the thing that yes requires, there are several things that yes requires to be true. Okay? Like, people think that it's impossible to empirically prove love or care. And I call bullshit on that when it comes to culture. At least the arts, at least black arts. And the more you refine that, right, the more you say, oh, culture, well, that's very broad. And then when you say art, that becomes less broad. But when you say black art, that shit gets real specific. Which is why this is where I'm at. This is where I'm at. And do you know why? That's because of the thing that is true about America overall. And that is that how you treat the least of us is what you are. You can idealize all the other things about yourself that you want, but what you do is what you are. It is what is. And if you can't find your way clear to do right by black art, then you don't get to say, I care about art. And then you can't say, I care about culture. What I'm saying is, black art in Columbus is the lowest bar you can hit. If you hit that bar, then all the other bars will take care of themselves. But if you can't hit that, right, then just stop. Just say no. Just say no, and we'll all go to our jobs, or we'll all quit, or we'll all just paint on the weekends, and we'll do sip and paints, or whatever you want to do that you want to pretend is culture. And there'll be plenty of us to take the pictures for your brochures and be on your billboards and all that other shit. But what you cannot say is that you care. We'll just say it's something else. We'll just call it something else. We'll just call it something else. You with me so far?
Yeah.
Okay. How do you get the yes? How do you prove the yes? Right? That's the question. How do we prove this? That Columbus cares about black art. So I'll tell you a funny story about my gig with Alive. I started to write this out, like what I'm doing now, and I said, well, wait. Maybe I can use my column to answer the question. And so several weeks back, I wrote a column that kind of floated the question, but it didn't say black art. It just said, can Columbus care about its citizens? And I talked about citizens and all that bullshit. Well, it's not bullshit, it's true. But it wasn't what I was really thinking about. This got me to that bigger thing, right? And so then I was like, well, maybe I'll write a series of columns and we'll kind of interrogate this question together as a community. And so I wrote that initial one and people were like, ooh, I can't wait to start doing this work. And then this week I followed it up with what apparently is the first installment of a series now. And I kind of was like, well, I really want to talk about what's not possible before we talk about what is possible. And so, for instance, one of the things, again, because we're not talking about black art, we're just talking about cities and citizens, and can cities care about citizens? This week's column was about systems, right? And I basically drew the conclusion that systems are not designed to care about people. And so we know that whatever the answer is, it doesn't include systems. And so I used the education system locally to kind of beat that up and interrogate that a little bit, and it was a whole thing. And it is what it is. But frankly, after the week that I've had with the arts industrial complex, I'm just like, I don't care about any of this anymore. Blah. So we'll see what next week's column is. But since we're here, let me further. I just wanted to kind of throw that out there to show that I am trying to answer the question in some very concrete ways, other than apparently doing this video. So, but there are a couple of things that we need to answer this question as empirically as possible, which is what I'm striving for. We have to have resources. That's very broad. So let's understand that when we say resources, we basically mean money, right? So I'm just going to put that on there. Some amount of money, X dollars, is part of how we get to yes. It's how we prove it. That's what this is. We're trying to prove. But it can't just be money. It also has to be an amount of time. You can't give me the check once. You have to give me the check over a certain amount of time. Because then you only have to pay it once and you just check it off the box and you're done and you proved that you care. And then I have to do all the work. And so the commitment needs to extend over time. So I need X amount of dollars, which has to be more money than you've ever given to this cause. And I need it over an extended amount of time. That will establish a commitment to the answer. What else do we need? As the recipient of your time and money, I have to provide some things. And I have to do that selflessly as the black artist in question. Right? So I have to create some things. And then but they have to be things that we agree that I give under the premise of this question. So I can't just take the check and run off, make some art, sell the art, do my thing, blah, blah, blah. Like, that's a grant, right? That's just a grant. That's just a prize. And those things are nice, and you should continue to do those things. But those things don't really get us the kind of definitive yes that we're looking for. Especially in the amounts that Columbus tends to confer such things. So a $500 grant to a musician is not proving this. A $1,000 grant to a visual artist is not proof of this. $15,000 to the recipient of an Amina residency does not prove this. That sounds weird to hear, because that's a lot.
Seems like a lot of money.
But it's not a lot of money. Ain't nobody quitting their job over $15,000. Ain't nobody just going into work the next day is talking about, yo, I got $15,000, I'm out. No adult, right? So, the level of these things needs to be significant. And so, I'm actually taking a step back to expound on this formula. So instead of an addition, I'm going to make it a multiplication. Those resources over an extended amount of time to create a commitment needs to be amplified. Technically it's this, it shouldn't be here. It should be over here. These things need to be amplified by whatever. X squared, who knows, whatever. Z, I just want to put more letters. But what this is an extraordinary number. Now, pull that back. I'm going to go back to the point I was making. So as the recipient, I have to provide something that I and the arts industrial complex of the city has to agree on. We have to say, this, we want to prove that we care. I give you these things. Now you have to give me something to show that the care has happened, right? And so we have to produce something. I'm going to call it a product. I don't perceive it as a product, like as a thing that you sell, but it is a thing that has been paid for. So I'm going to call it a product. But basically it is art. Right? It is art and culture. Because as we know, those things are often conflated, but they are not always the same thing. But this is the agreement. So with your commitment, plus my agreed upon delivery of product, art, and culture, in theory, we have a proven level of care. And hopefully, if we have done this right, then we get to do all the other stuff. We get to prove culture. We get to prove that we care about culture, that we care about art, and that we care about black art. And all of that trickles up. The way they've been doing it is as if it trickles down, which we know doesn't work. It is time to make it trickle up. This is the goal, a proven level of care. Let's call it a PLC. That's the goal. That's the goal. Does that make sense?
It does. So what do you plan on doing? I mean, you're going to continue then the writings where you sort of...
Fuck the writings.
Okay, so...
I mean, I may, but the writings are just fodder, right? All that work it has to be concrete. I recognize that it has to be concrete. So in theory, now you're asking for the magic. I'll give you some of it, because I don't have it all worked out, and like I said, it's a little cold to me. But we know that it is at least this. It is at least this. I present to you a line in the sand. This is all theory. This is all how I believe that the ingredients to make us get to the PLC, the proven level of care. But at some point you have to draw a line in the sand and you say, here is what it takes. These are the numbers, these are the bodies, right? So the line in the sand is this. It's the XZ, right? It's the X. It's this X here, right? I propose, and the line in the sea, let us define the line, right? The line is a proposal. That is the physical thing, right? Because I hate talking about theory alone. It is the physical thing that needs to happen. If you do not do the thing, if you do not hit the line, if you do not hit the proposal, then you have not done this. What's the line? What is the proposal? Well, I propose by myself with no input at this point, but obviously open to it. I propose a focus in 3 areas. It's 2 of which are areas, well, technically 1, but 1.5 of areas of which the city already likes to pretend they care about. One is music. One is art, which we understand to be visual arts in their many forms. And one is literature, the cheapest of the forms. In each of these areas, there are other areas. Dance exists in this city. Live theater exists in this city. But I don't think anybody would argue with the observation that when it comes to the black versions of those things, they are on life support, if they exist at all in any given moment or given year or given season. And that was before the pandemic. Let's be clear about that. So I'm saying, if the city won't do it for this, this, and this, it doesn't matter what anything else is. You feel me? At least there's a spread. Like, at least I'm not a musician saying Columbus don't care about black art and I only mean music. You know, at least I'm not a sculptor who says Columbus don't care about black art and I only mean visual art. That's not what this is about. I've always been multidisciplinary, and the approach must be multidisciplinary to prove the question, or to answer the question. So, how do we do this? Well, we have to have presentations of these things in these areas, and they have to hit a certain level, and they must be in certain places, and they must be trumpeted at a certain level by the city and the artists in concert. And then we can say that we have done it. We have created a relationship, which is the ultimate goal of all of these things. A non-abusive, non-pimp relationship. A good relationship. A viable and healthy relationship. Turns out, how you answer this question is the same answer it is in love, in your home, with your family, with your lover, with your spouse, with your friend. Do you have a viable and healthy relationship? That is what this question is. Can Columbus care about black art? How does it do that? By ultimately creating a viable and healthy relationship. The only question is, what happens between this equation and this sum? I propose these 3 areas. And what did I say they need to do? They need to provide, right? They have to create a product that we all agree is the thing. We can't just have somebody off on the side and say, oh, that's part of the equation, let's roll it in. No, it has to be stuff that we agreed is the deal. So, music. What we're talking X number of performances in a given year, mind you, in a given year. Done at Y level of quality. And the same for art, the same for literature. Now, I think there's another qualifier or two here. I just can't remember them offhand because I wasn't prepared. But this is a good start. Like, this is an excellent start. You could spend your life just trying to get this. In fact, a lot of people get paid to do this already and they don't do it. So, how do we ensure that these things happen? How do we ensure that X and Y happen? Somebody has to be in charge of each thing. This has to become somebody's job. This has to become somebody's job, and this has to become somebody's job. Somebody has to be in charge of the music branch. Somebody has to be in charge of the art department. Somebody has to be in charge of the literature area. Like, and this can't be what it has been in the past. This can't be a part-time job. This can't be a volunteer effort. This can't be something you do on the weekends. This can't be, these jobs, they can't be $15,000. This has to be exactly what it says it is. This has to be somebody's job. You know what that means? That means you have to pay somebody real money. Real money. Somebody has to be able to live and do this work. And they have to provide a number of performances, either annually or seasonally or whatever, at a certain level of quality. And to do that, that can be the only thing that they do. So this is not a $15,000 job. This is not a $25,000 job. You are creating directors, people who are coming up with the programs, who are coming up with the people who are doing the programs, who are maybe even dealing with the venues for these programs. This is real money. It's not, here's the part you really don't want to hear. That's not the bulk of the money, but it's real money. This has to be a job that allows Lomax to leave the foundation. Just to do this. In a way that gives us the number of performances we require at the level of quality that we require. I'm just using Mark as an example. But if he were the person in charge of this, and this were his job, it has to be a pay that takes him out of his day job. Like, this is his day job, every day. That's what this requires. Now, we can talk about the number of performances and the level of quality, whatever, blah, blah, blah. But the bottom line is, the proposal is, let's say, and because all these people have to answer to somebody, let's just say that's me. Boom, Scott, boom, I'll just put myself right there. It's my idea, I'll just use myself right there. It could be somebody else, but right now it's me. All these people have to answer to Scott. Because at the end of the day, somebody gotta do it. Quality control, right? All the way up and down the ladder. Quality control. So, real jobs, blah, 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 right? I think we get all that. And so, and we say this is work that is dedicated to answering this question. It is the work that the city has paid for. The arts industrial complex and its partners and whoever else is contributing has paid for the express purpose of doing what? Creating a viable and healthy relationship. Not paying for a concert. Creating a viable and healthy relationship. How? This amount over this amount of time. This is not a one-year thing. You can't have somebody quit their job and come do this for a year. This is at least minimum 5-year commitment. 5-year commitment for all of these things. And the budgets for all of these things. We're talking a lot of money here. We're talking a lot of money here. How do we ensure that this is a reciprocal, viable, and healthy relationship? That it's not one way. That they give us money and we do a bunch of shit. Well, one of the ways is that, part of doing a level of quality in terms of performances or exhibits or publications or performances or a combination of all of these things. Part of that is using the venues that the city provides. These are world-class performances. We're not creating, just kind of a throwaway thing here. People are getting paid to rehearse. People are getting paid to perform. People are getting paid to publish. People are getting paid to present. People are getting paid to do workshops and education, whatever. However these things are defined, individually or collectively even. But they are happening in the spaces that the city already has, right? We're giving you programming. You're paying, not giving you, you're paying for programming. That's not to say that their office is going to be in your office. These people do not work for GCAC or the Ohio Arts Council or whatever. These people work for whoever this person is, and this is some entity. Is this Streetlight Guild? I don't know. Maybe. I don't know. The point is that these people work for that, and they create these things, and we agree that these things will be in your venues. They will use your resources. You will put them on your advertisements. They will be part of your seasons or whatever. But it's a reciprocal relationship. It's not just this thing where you give me money and I go do the thing and then I put a blurb, or maybe, if I remember, on my website that says this was funded in part by ... That's not what this is. That's not what I'm looking for. I'm looking to come to your art museum. To the Pizzuti Museum right now is open 1 day a week. 1 day a week. I will put something in your Pizzuti Museum 2 days, at some other time that isn't 1 day a week. We have the infrastructure. We have enough theaters. We have enough places in, the theaters have enough spread in town to be viable. We got the Palace, we got the Ohio, we got the Southern, we got the Lincoln, we got the Wright, we got the Wex. I mean, we have the resources to do it. What we don't necessarily have is the will to do this. This requires will. You have to want to answer this question real bad. But I guarantee you that, and I would say, look, I'm going to hire the best people to do these things. I'm going to be I'm the biggest mouth for this entire problem that you have as a city. If you can shut me up, this problem is solved. And there it is. That's the thing. And here's the thing. I have to write all these things out. X number of performances, Y level of quality, X number of exhibits, Y level of quality, X number of publications, Y level of quality. I will give you that. Each year I will give you this number, this number, this number. Over the next 5 years. All you got to do, besides, the way that we work out how things are advertised and sponsored and who says what or whatever, all you got to do is hit this number. A big number. It's a big number. It's not thousands. It's not tens of thousands. It is hundreds of thousands. It's probably millions. That's the deal. And I say, and here it is. And I give you the whole packet. We're talking performances that look like this, that look like that have this level of quality, that read like this, that look like this, that sound like this. Right? So you pull out examples nationally. This is what we're competing with. Anyhow. So, bottom line, I gotta kind of get down to what this number is, but it's a big number. It has to be though. It has to be. You can't answer this question half-assed, right? And it has to be a commitment so strong and profound that it cannot be questioned. And so, the normal levels of support are not going to get this done. And you cannot, in my opinion, you should not and you cannot stop doing the things you're already doing to make this happen. Because those, the peanuts you're giving now, you have to keep giving those peanuts. And you have to do this. You can't roll the peanuts into this. Because then you already started showing that you don't care. That you don't want to answer the question right. This has to be a complete, separate effort than whatever you're doing right now. So, that's my proposal. And then that proposal has to be presented citywide at once. Boom, Beyonce dropped. Like, yo, here's the deal. And it's a lot to consume. It might have to be like a website or something initially. But it's like, yo, here's the deal. This is the problem as I see it. If you agree with the problem or some aspect of the problem, you may have a place in the solution. Here's the math. Here's what it looks like. Here is the goal. Here's what it costs. Yes or no? That's it. The question is, here's the addendum. You could stop it there, but here's the PS. Is the arts industrial complex the answer? After all of this, is the arts industrial complex the answer? Some people would say absolutely not. They're not capable of this level of change. They're not capable of carving out the resources in the interest of this question. Not for black artists. I'm not inclined to argue, right? My experience would definitely suggest that they're right. The question to me then becomes, is the arts industrial complex, the fact that I am calling them the arts industrial complex suggests that I already have the answer, right? But I'm gonna stick with it anyway because it's dope. The question is, can the arts industrial complex do this? If we know that answer now, why don't we just say the answer is no? Why don't we just say the answer is no? The reason why you don't do that is because the arts industrial complex is not the city. Right? All this stuff we talking about. Oh man, I should have done this better. Fine. This is specifically why I bought this pad. The big idea is I probably don't need a whole sheet of paper for this one, but I pulled it out anyway. Here we go. New question. Or actually, it might be the question before the question. Can the arts industrial complex do this? Can they do this? If the answer is no, then does that mean that this answer is no? Is that what that means? And I contend that it does not. This no just means that you have to, I'm sorry, let me back up again and reiterate that the reason why this no doesn't equal this no is because the arts industrial complex is not the city. If the arts industrial complex were the city, I would not have this building. The arts industrial complex isn't why Streetlight Guild exists. And I'm going to use Streetlight Guild very specifically, one, because I know all the answers, and two, because it's once again, going back to this, the least of the thing proves the proof of the thing, right? The arts industrial complex isn't why Streetlight Guild exists. A person with money is why Streetlight Guild exists. And then people with money are why Streetlight Guild continues to exist. I don't apply for lots of grants like that. I think I've applied for like 2 grants with GCAC in the last 3 years since we've been open. 3.5, 3 years. And like 1 technically grant through the Columbus Foundation, which is a recurring grant each year. But I receive, as I love to say out loud, and I probably shouldn't, IRS, but I love to say that I have received more money in donations during a pandemic than I received from all of my grants combined to date. That's the people. So that's why the arts industrial complex is not the city. The question is, can the city whatever that means, can the city do this? That is the thing we don't know. If we knew this today, if we knew the answer to can the city do this, that would erase part of this. You wouldn't need to draw a line in the sand. You feel me? You wouldn't need to draw a line in the sand because it's not a challenge. The city already supports it. If they prove the question by the fact that it's an independent effort. If you don't use the AIC, the Arts Industrial Complex, you have already proven the question. I just don't know what, I don't know 100% what the big number is. I just know I don't know enough people individually to pay it right now today to answer this question. Because if I did, I just do it. I just do it. That's the math, those are the questions, those are the thoughts.